It had been rumored for a bit, investigations were done, there was nothing in the Oilers' way of signing Mike Babcock. Except for logic and reasoning, but that's never stopped them before. The Edmonton Oilers, I think, are making a huge mistake with their head coach. Let's talk about it. I just can't imagine watching how sports have played out over the last 12 months, let's just say. And you look at, in all of these sports, you look at Major League Baseball with the Toronto Blue Jays and the unity that they had and the closeness, even to the point where the jokes are the power of friendship and how it is just this whole unit that was able to get more out of every one of the sum of the parts to be able to build this team to get within a game of winning that thing right there. Then you look at the NBA and you see how the Knicks built their championship team with unity and structure and everyone buying in for the greater good of this team. And then you look, I can hear what you're saying. Okay, well, those are other sports. Yes. And then you look at the NHL and you see the Carolina Hurricanes. Is there a superstar on that team? I really like Aho. Stankoven played like a superstar this year, but there's not a superstar on that team. But they had a foundation, they had a culture, and they had a coach who did the best that he could to get the most out of each and every one of those guys. There was a complete and total buy-in, and they were able to knock down the Vegas Golden Knights and win the Stanley Cup. I can't imagine watching all of that, being Edmonton, knowing the desperation around this season, and thinking, okay, culture, not important. We're going to bring Mike Babcock in. We are going to bring in a guy who has been, to be blunt, who's been an asshole in every stop that he has been, to the point where like he is forcing players to retire basically because of mental health issues. He has been just absolutely isolating rookies and causing problems on those teams, and all the while not winning games. I don't understand this at all. From Edmonton's standpoint. I guess I shouldn't say that. I understand what Edmonton is doing because it's what Edmonton has done for a long time. It's, okay, we got the superstar here. We need to get a proven coach who can go out and do it. Now, to be fair, they haven't done that the last couple. So there was always going to be a veteran coming in here, right? The issue you have is that they've done this a couple of times. Okay, we need to go out and get a culture setter. So let's bring Milan Lucic in to play with Connor McDavid. Oh, that didn't work. We have to trade him for James Neal. Oh, that didn't work either. Okay, whatever. Let's bring in Pat Quinn to help out with Taylor Hall and all of these guys. Let's do this, that, and the other thing. This is it is a desperation move, and it is one from a handbook that has been outdated for a really long time. I get that you need to bring in a guy that the Stars agree with, right? Because that was the big thing with Knobloch, is they were pissed that Knobloch wasn't running systems that were going to make them be successful, competitive, whatever it is. And so now you run it by him. And well, Babcock, aside from the Marner thing, he's never really had a problem with the superstars. The problem has been with those depth pieces that he treats like absolute dog shit. Listen to Commodore talk about it. Listen to the stories of Franzen and all of these guys. And like, who are the ones that he's picking on? Babcock knows. I don't think he's a great coach, and we'll get to that part in a second here. But the dude's not a complete idiot. He knows how to insulate himself, and that is by getting the respect and getting the support of the star players. And so he's got McDavid, he's got Draisaitl, but it's the rest of them who he views that as just lesser than, that he can just treat however he wants, which is exactly 100% the opposite of what the Oilers need right now. Edmonton is going to have to maximize some guys who maybe look less than on their roster. Aside from this most recent series where he got hurt, the issue hasn't been getting the most out of McDavid or even Draisaitl, right? Like, when those guys are healthy, they have given you 110% of what you could possibly expect. The issue is you need to get the absolute most out of the Podkolzins and the Fredericks and the other guys throughout the lineup. And while that has happened with some, Kapanen was fantastic this last playoff. Same thing with Podkolzin. It hasn't been enough. And then you have the goalie situation in the defense. The point I'm getting at here is you need to have this team and everyone on it basically playing to their hockey DB page in order for them to get to where they need to get to this season, and that is winning a championship. And this is a guy who has proven that he is not the dude to get the most out of those depth players. And so, look, even if you are okay with everything that he did in all of the stops along the way, with the taking the rookies' phones, with making Marner rank all of the players in terms of effort, and then exposing that list to the rest of the team, the bullying of Franzen to the point where he couldn't play anymore. Even if you want to overlook all of that, this is a guy who hasn't won a playoff series in a really long time. And we talked about it on Calgary radio out here. And so immediately once I say Calgary radio, I know there's going to be some who just like, oh, it's a Calgary bias, whatever. Look, I'm thrilled y'all are doing this because it's funny content for us. But we talked about this a little bit before with Mike Babcock, and the common thing that was coming up was, well, how's he supposed to do that with the rosters that he was having? Well, okay, so the only way he can win is if he gets one of the greatest goalie performances in the history of hockey that leads him to Game 7 of the Cup final when he loses with the Anaheim Ducks, when he gets a super team in the Detroit Red Wings and gets blow-away goaltending performances from Dominik Hasek and helps ride that wave toward a championship, or when he gets one of the greatest hockey teams ever assembled in Hockey Canada. Okay, neat. But if you're going to point at, like, well, what else did he have the rest of that way? I will grant you the back end of the Detroit stuff, where it was Legwand and all of those guys coming in. But still, I do think there was a little bit more juice left to squeeze out of that one. Got a lot out of Datsuk, got a lot out of Zetterberg, got a lot out of the Stars, but the depth pieces weren't there helping. And then in Toronto, like, again, talk about what we have just seen. What have we just been talking about with the Leafs? How these guys couldn't step up in those big moments and didn't get those big goals when they needed to. And Marner finally gets out of that, goes to Vegas, and turns into a superstar until games 5-6 of the Stanley Cup final. But turns into the player that a lot of people thought he could be. The first one who didn't get that out of these guys was Babcock. He was there with Matthews, Tavares, and Marner, and Nylander. He was there during some pretty brutal losses for this team. So, to be perfectly frank, spare me with he just didn't have the rosters to do what he could have done with this group, or with the other teams that he controlled and that he was the coach of. Like, okay, he's not going to have that here. Like, Edmonton, yes, McDavid is phenomenal and the most talented hockey player that's ever existed. And Draisaitl, very close as well. But this isn't a good roster. Like, make no mistake about it. Outside of that, like Hyman, getting him at $5 million is a steal, and that's fantastic. But even he, a bit of a drop-off there. No one is talking about it as much, but Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, a bit of a drop-off there. Yes, Kapanen has stepped up. Yes, Podkolzin has stepped up. But like on the blue line, Darnell Nurse is trying to get out of town. And while he is not a $9.5 or $9.25 million defenseman like his contract would state, dude's still a top 4 defenseman, and this move would leave them with like 2.5 top 4 defensemen right now. So if you want to tell me that Babcock didn't have the roster to be successful, that's fine. I guess we can listen. I think you're wrong, but I'll at least listen to that argument. But then you have to admit that he ain't going to have it in Edmonton unless some magical trade falls into their lap 4 times and they can build out an actual quality full-on NHL roster. So I think this is a mistake. I think it is a mistake that is absolutely born out of an immense amount of desperation and pressure, and that is when some teams thrive and some don't. And I think we are seeing right now the opposite side of that. Now, look, I've been wrong on these things before. And again, like I talked about this with some other stuff, like where this goes right and where this goes wrong are both very obvious, right? Like where this goes right is Babcock is actually this master tactician that everyone thinks he was from 16 years ago and is able to get not only the most out of McDavid and Draisaitl, but those alongside them, and is able to get everyone pulling the rope in the right direction, and off they go to a Stanley Cup championship. And Mike Babcock is hoisting it and bringing a title back to Canada for the first time in 34 years. Where this goes wrong is he doesn't even make it to training camp because the dude can't help himself. So, like, it's a gigantic swing. And it underscores the pressure that's in Edmonton right now. I get that McDavid has a 2-year contract, and everyone's loving to point out that those guys have signed extensions in Edmonton while other star players are leaving their places. Talk to me in 365 days. Because if the Oilers aren't hoisting the championship this time next year, then when it comes to draft week, we will be talking about trade destinations for Connor McDavid. That there is no doubt about it in my mind. So this is, I've said it a couple of times. I don't think any team is under as much pressure to win in one season than Edmonton is for this year. That goes for all sports, and it kind of goes for forever. Like, there is so much pressure on these guys to do it this year, and that leads to desperation moves here like Mike Babcock. So it's obvious where I come down on this conversation. Where are you guys at? Am I being too hard? I'm probably being too hard. Am I being too harsh on this, or am I not being harsh enough? Let me know in the comments, and we can keep that conversation rolling down there. Probably an awkward time to bring this up for some of you, but we do have a tip jar here with Couch Potato Diary. If you want to support the content that we're making here, I would really appreciate it. It's linked, if you're listening in podcast form, it's in the podcast description. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the description of the video. Whether you're watching just the Babcock video or the whole episode, it is there. I would really appreciate the support. Certainly not required. This isn't a subscription or anything like that. It would just be a bit of support, but obviously, like, if you just hit that subscribe button, it's enough. Or even just spending your time listening to me rant on about old washed coaches is, it means the world to me. So thank you guys so much for all the support, whether it be financial or just with your time and your eyes and ears.